Hey everybody, I've been doing some audiobooks with some really awesome authors, and a few of the books might help people out on Valentine's Day. I have some nonfiction books about reaching your erotic potential and things like that, and then some fiction books if maybe you're spending Valentine's Day by yourself and still want to have a good time. So, after this little intro, are going to be a couple of the audio clips that I've done for some of the books recently. And then down in the description, I'll have links to all of them that you can buy directly on Audible. And hopefully you can share it with other people. And there's more clips on my own personal site, which is down in the description as well, notthatdanlevy.com. So happy Valentine's Day and enjoy my voice even more.
Chapter 5 Erotic Knowledge and Skills. If you truly desire to live your erotic potential, you must commit to being a lifelong learner. Erotic love is so vast, one can never achieve mastery without a commitment to continuous learning. As the late philosopher Erich Hoffer was fond of saying, in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. Make no mistake about it, we are in a time of enormous change, requiring continuous learning and adapting to new realities. This includes unlearning the beliefs and habits that no longer serve us. It is essential for you to know the female and male anatomy. The beautiful flower of female genitalia goes by many names, including vagina, pussy, and lady bits. As Shakespeare wrote, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. The term many in the Tantra world use is yoni. Coming from Sanskrit, yoni literally means origin, source, or womb. The yoni is exquisitely designed both for pleasure and procreation. It should be treated like a precious piece of original art. The yoni is richly complex and multifaceted. For a man, it is particularly important to know the location and role of the clitoris and how to touch your woman there. This is basic clitoracy, which is necessary but not sufficient in satisfying a woman. However, the clitoris is just the tip of the iceberg. Like an iceberg, a tremendous amount is below the surface. Dr. Nancy Sutton Pierce does a great job of providing images of anatomy above and below the surface on her website, drnsp.com. The internal landscape of a woman's yoni is just as beautiful and rewarding as the external contours. Women, like men, have a prostate gland that surrounds the urethral canal. This is also known as the G-spot, or in Tantra, as the sacred spot. For most women, having the G-spot tenderly and skillfully massaged is very enjoyable and may or may not lead to peak orgasm. More and more women are discovering that with proper touch, they can ejaculate. The ejaculant is not urine, although it may contain a little. It has a different taste, texture, and smell than urine. However, because it is a fluid and it comes from near the urethra, it is often mistaken for urine. My personal experience with female ejaculation. I did not come to fully appreciate the beauty of female ejaculation until I was in my 50s. I was at a conference in San Francisco where I met an attractive single lady at the cocktail hour following the speaker presentations. We went out for dinner and found we enjoyed a lot of sexual chemistry between us. We were both unattached and turned on by each other, so we started by kissing passionately, which led to us going back to my hotel room together. We spent some time getting to know each other, and we ended up naked in bed together. As I was getting ready to enter her, she said, "I need to tell you something." I replied, "What is that?" She replied, "I ejaculate." I playfully responded, "That is great. I do too." And she said, "That's cute, but I mean I really ejaculate." While what she said intrigued me, I had no idea what I was in store for. For the next few hours, we made love non-stop and ended up soaking the sheets, mattress pad, and 6 towels. As the conference was still going on, with or without us, we each dragged ourselves to the speaker sessions the next day. Although I'd only slept an hour, I felt strangely energized, and I had a smile on my face that must have looked out of place to the other conference participants. The fire in both of us was still burning hot at the end of the day, so we ended up doing it all over again the following night. We then traveled to our homes separately the next day. I was in a state of bliss on the flight home. Those were two of the sexually hottest and wettest nights of my life. Even though we lived in different states, we ended up dating long distance for 2 years, re-experiencing the joy of squirting many times. After we got to know each other better, I asked her, that first night we were together in San Francisco, how many ounces of fluid do you think you ejaculated when we drenched everything in the room? She replied, about 1/2 gallon, which seemed to me like a conservative estimate. But just think about that for a moment. 1/2 gallon is the volume of your typical milk carton. It was a baptism I will never forget, and I will be forever thankful to her for giving me that experience. Whether touching the clitoris or massaging the internal sacred spot, a common mistake is to rub too hard and aggressively, trying to get the woman to orgasm or ejaculate on your schedule, as opposed to hers. When making love with a woman, it is best to slow things down and tune into the energy of your lover and the moment. When your touch is energetically guided, opposed to goal-driven, a woman can orgasm or ejaculate with little or no touch at all. But for the one doing the touching, make sure your fingernails are neatly and closely trimmed. Orgasms come in different shapes and sizes, and they are all good. Women can have clitoral, vaginal, cervical, anal, and full body orgasms. Men can have orgasms with and without ejaculation. The classic peak orgasm rises quickly and falls away, just like its name. But that is just one of the many orgasms these human bodies are capable of experiencing. My friend and senior Kwodoshka teacher, Amara Charles, uses the word orgastic to describe a state that can go on and on, unlike the peak orgasm. If you want to improve the quality and quantity of your orgasms and those of your partners, the exercises in this book will help you. And it all begins with the breath, attuning to yourself and to your partner. In the Tantra world, the male genitalia is frequently referred to as a lingam. From Sanskrit, lingam is the phallic emblem under which Shiva is worshipped. This wand of light is exquisitely designed to give and receive pleasure. It also, of course, plays an important role in procreation. The lingam is a sensitive organ and was provided with foreskin to protect it. Most men in the U.S. have been circumcised. If this is your case, as it is mine, there's no reason to feel sorry for yourself. However, because there is no medical case for the benefits of circumcision, we need to come to terms with the fact that it is done for cultural reasons and not for health benefits. If you are a soon-to-be parent of a boy or know a soon-to-be parent of a boy, please visit intactamerica.org for information before making a circumcision choice. Male ejaculation. I have addressed how beautiful and pleasurable female ejaculation can be for both the lady and her partner. What about male ejaculation? If you have studied Tantra or Taoist sexual practices, you may have gotten the message that when a man ejaculates, he loses his vitality, and so a man should refrain from ejaculation. This is an overly simplistic view. The key is for a man to develop ejaculatory choice. When a man achieves mastery over his ejaculatory impulse, it will transform his lovemaking. He will be happier and more fulfilled, and so will his partner. Does this mean a man should never ejaculate? Of course not. If it were not for the male ejaculation, it is pretty safe to say few of us would be here. So don't diss male ejaculation. However, if a man wants to begin to live his erotic potential, he must develop the capacity to move beyond the impulse to ejaculate when he is sexually stimulated. This mastery begins with conscious breathing and the awareness of erotic energy in your body and your lover's body. Erotic energy follows the breath. If a man allows all the erotic energy to pool in his groin, the tendency will be to ejaculate. For a man to extend his lovemaking experience, a useful technique is to breathe energy up the central channel, the space just in front of the spine. Once the erotic energy circulates throughout the body, that impulse to ejaculate dissipates. With practice, a man can stay hard and make love for extended periods, providing hours of ecstatic pleasure to his partner and himself. Unlearning old habits. When a boy reaches puberty, he usually begins to learn about sex through self-pleasuring. Then, if he is lucky, he may get a female partner who will put up with his lack of skillfulness. Through repetition, the male orgasm and ejaculation become interconnected, literally wired together neurologically. Our nervous system becomes conditioned to believe that orgasm depends on ejaculation. Then, when self-pleasuring or while having sex, the immature male, who is chasing the orgasm because it feels so damn good, makes ejaculation the goal. The problem with this habit is that it shortens the lovemaking session from what could be hours to a few minutes at best. Then, after ejaculating, sometimes without an orgasm, the man generally wants to disengage, roll over, and go to sleep. His receptive partner is then left disappointed and, over time, angry. The good news is that at most any age, a man can learn to rewire his neural network that closely links ejaculation and orgasm. The skilled male lover has the capacity to direct sexual energy from the first and second chakras to the upper 5 chakras. In this way, the whole body becomes an instrument of pleasure, not just the lingam. The key is connecting to the breath and learning to direct and circulate erotic energy throughout his body and the body of his lover. When that mastery is achieved, sex will never be ho-hum again for him or his partner. Challenges for men. Challenges include erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, and anorgasmia. The causes of these conditions can vary widely. Some are physiological, but often more are emotional and psychological. Regardless of the source, treat this as a challenge rather than a problem. There are always ways to improve your situation. Drugs known as SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, such as Prozac and Paxil, can cause problems with orgasming. If you are on a prescribed drug for depression and you are having difficulty orgasming, talk with your physician about alternative treatments. What about Viagra and testosterone supplements? While it is tempting to look to a pill for quick answers to erectile problems, there is reason for caution. Typically, there are side effects, including the risk of dependency. Before going down this route, get a complete physical and have a consultation with your doctor. If you decide to take supplements, try to stay with natural herbal remedies, such as those mentioned in Chapter 4. Good lovers are good learners. The brain is our largest and most potent sex organ. We often focus on the performance of the cock, but good sex engages the whole body and nervous system. Genuine curiosity and openness to discovering and rediscovering your erotic nature and that of your lover will keep sex fresh and alive. Embodiment practice. Practice intentional breathing, self-pleasuring, and delaying orgasm. Both men and women can practice this delay, called edging. When we can hang out and ride the current without going over the edge, we gain a whole new appreciation for orgasmic energy. This can help a man gain ejaculatory mastery, and there is no shame if you cannot hold on. If you are going over the edge, fully enjoy it. I hesitate, and it makes me laugh. I'm a fucking Marine, and the sight of a playroom filled with littles is terrifying me. Get it together, Price. Straightening my spine, I walk through the door, stopping just inside. I cross my arms over my chest, which is probably not the most welcoming stance I've ever had, but it feels like a shield, so fuck it. I want a boy like you, my little prince. Sweet, tempting, strong, and special. I want everything you're willing to give me. Your mind, your body, your soul. I want your beautiful submission and deliciously tempting thoughts. You're stubborn, defiant, self-critical, and moody, but you're mine. No other man can compare to a daddy like you, especially some wannabe dom with a greasy smile and more red flags than the beachfront during a hurricane season. I know you think of yourself as less than because of your injury and your prosthetic, somehow feeling broken and missing a critical element. But what you don't understand is that your body isn't what makes you a daddy, what makes you my daddy. It's the way you treat me, protect me, and care for me, the way you love me and let me love you in return, even when you feel undeserving of it. My hands are shaking as I stare down at the text from Tim. He waylaid my plans to pick him up, but that's okay. I'm still having lunch with him, and we're going to have that talk. This conversation has been a long time coming. I text him the address where to meet. He's going to be shocked, since the museum grounds isn't the usual lunch place I would have set up for a date. But this isn't a normal situation. No matter. What this is an apology on my part, and get to know him even more. And hopefully, after a belly full of good food and well-deserved conversation, it might turn into the date with the possibility of another sweet kiss at the end of the day. If not, then we walk away as friends. I would prefer the first. Since there's no reply from the text I sent Tim, I jump into the shower. After I shave, I dress casually in a thin green polo and black cargo shorts. Staring at myself in the bathroom mirror, a string of doubt begins to strangle me. I glance down at my cell to see if Tim responded, but there isn't another text bubble, which leaves me even more nervous. I hope Tim doesn't change his mind, since I know we both need this closure to move forward with our potential friendship, and if I'm lucky, maybe explore what's been sparking between us. I make sure Stanley gets some well-needed attention, several long belly rubs, and a quick walk down the block and back. Once I fill his water and food bowl, my confidence is waning thin with the ensuing silence on my phone. This is all or nothing, Cannon. In high school, I made terrible mistakes. With Tim, and with my life. He is the one person who still holds the keys to my past and possibly my future. I want to reconcile and prove to him how sorry I truly am for those years I tormented him. Some might think I'm doing this to get in Tim's pants, but my feelings are a fuck ton more important to straighten what I broke all those years ago, more so than any sexual infatuation running through my veins. I want to explore the innate connection I know we have with each other. I felt it in our first kiss on my porch and the way we looked at each other these past several weeks. I know Tim senses it too. One way or another, Tim Scott will be in my life. He just needs to give me a chance to prove it.
Sidestepping people that seem to grow in numbers with each step closer to James, I quicken my pace until James is in full view, standing exactly where he said he would be. Something inside me settles when our eyes meet, and excitement begins to rise as his grin widens. I like the fact that his total attention is fixed on me. I take the last few steps and say, "Hey," but his smile falters a bit. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I stutter out. "Why?" "You look like you've been crying." My heart trips over his words. I've been trying to rein in the heaviness in my heart for losing Marble and Slate, but my damn tears are ready to burst forth again. The ache in my chest burns too much, so I let out my anguish. I wasn't able to adopt Slate and Marble. They were picked up today by their new families. It's hard admitting my feelings and showing an ounce of sadness in front of this man. It's embarrassing. What if he uses my weak state and... I briefly close my eyes and shake off the negative thoughts. If James was the same guy I knew back in high school, I wouldn't be standing here in front of him, and I wouldn't have let him kiss me yesterday, in front of volunteers and staff at the animal shelter. I'm sorry, James. I thought I got past the crying. James draws me into his arms and holds on tight until my overwhelming feeling of loss for my puppy settle. He then whispers in my ear, I have a confession. I suck back a tiny sob and pull away from his hold. I look into his warm, whiskey-colored eyes. What? Don't be mad, okay? I study his face a little more as I take a step back from him. What did you do, James? Trust me. He extends his hand in earnest. Please. I stare down at that hand in contemplation. Trust? The man who turned my high school years into a nightmare wants my blind trust? My stomach twists and knots, but something deep inside me shoves forward and utters, All right, what is wrong with me?
Sooner than a nooner. Suddenly he felt someone touching his leg and heard, Good morning, stranger. Hello, beautiful. Where have you been all my life? Kurt said, stretching. Right here, waiting for my Prince Charming. I better get out of here before he shows up. I'm in no condition for a fight with a prince. He stood up and hugged his wife. You need a shower and a shave. If you go another day without one, you're going to look like Jeremiah Connors, and the bad guys will smell you coming. You go get in the shower, and I'll make you some breakfast. Care to take one with me? Breakfast I can get on the road. I'd rather spend my morning in the shower with you. Going over your curves and contours sounds way better than breakfast. I appreciate the offer, I really do. But you really stink, and having you rub that stubble all over my tender areas would just make me break out. It would probably take me a week to heal up. So, no on the communal shower. How about I make it a quick one, and then we have a quickie to get reacquainted? What time is it? Kurt said, looking at his watch, unable to focus, yet since his eyes were still too dry. It's the ass crack of 8, said Claire as she headed off to the kitchen. You don't need to go to the kitchen unless you want to do it in there, which, of course, I would be fine with, you kinky thing, you. I'm not sure the kitchen table could handle us, Claire said over her shoulder. If we break it, I'll gladly buy you a more sturdy one. First, the shower. Okay, Coach, I'm off to the showers. After a quick shower, Kurt walked out into the kitchen with nothing on but a towel. He moved up behind Claire, who was concentrating on making breakfast. His arms reached around her and undid her robe. Thanks for not putting a lot of needless clothes on, he said, pulling the loosened robe off her shoulders and letting it fall to the floor. You know that I'll probably burn your eggs, said Claire as she turned around and embraced her husband. The eggs aren't the only thing in here that's hot, my love, said Kurt as he lifted her onto the kitchen table and began to work his way down her front. For him, the rest of the world could wait. At this moment, Claire and he were in a universe of their own. Their passion for each other was not something to be rushed. Being naked together was something they both lived for. Fortunately, the kitchen table was up to the challenge. When he had first laid eyes on her, she was a new dispatcher. The other officers treated Claire like a little sister, looking out for what was her best interests. When they found out that Kurt was returning from working in the west end of the county, the other officers that had worked with him before took Claire aside and warned her about him. When he walked into the station that night and saw that she was going to be his dispatcher, Kurt reached out his hand to introduce himself. Claire stuck her hand up like a stop sign and said, Look, I don't like men, especially cops, and especially you. Kurt smiled and thought to himself, this should be interesting. She was young and beautiful with a curvaceous figure. She was wearing a dark purple bra under the light-colored dispatcher uniform, but she was oblivious to how it affected every male that came within visual range. Her long, dark hair and green eyes only served to make her more interesting. She was out of his league, and Kurt knew it instantly. She wasn't some cop groupie. Claire had character, self-confidence to match her devastating good looks. From that moment, Kurt devoted himself to being the man she needed in her life. He knew he wasn't good enough for her, but she was worth whatever it took. For the rest of his life, he would never stop working to be good enough for her. She was still and always would be the girl of his dreams. As such, when they made love, Kurt made sure that Claire got all the attention and time it took to know that she wasn't taken for granted. She climaxed until she couldn't take it anymore before it was his turn. When they finished, Claire threw out what was left of breakfast while Kurt got dressed in street clothes, kissed her goodbye, and headed off to the college. Enthralled. When a young vampire picks up a first-time prostitute, both get more than they were expecting. Driving through a less than reputable part of town, I came upon him. He huddled in a doorway as rain slammed heavily onto the pavement. Since I was hunting, I had my mind open to everything around me. I immediately picked up his entire story. He had left home at 17, never graduated. Now at 19, he couldn't find work, hadn't eaten in days, and had decided to sell himself. It was a sad story, but being able to see into the minds of men made me numb to sad stories. Instinct told me to keep driving, that he wasn't my prey. Something felt wrong. As a vampire, I was taught from a very early age to listen to my instincts. They were more honed than those of humans. But I liked the boy. His name was Ryan. This was the furthest he had fallen, his first time selling himself. I thought, if I picked him up and left him with a few $100s, I'd spare him from a life that would consume him. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. I stopped my car in front of him. He approached as I rolled down the passenger side window. He wore a green hoodie, covering curly blonde hair. His blue-green eyes squinted at me. He passively wondered if I was a serial killer. I smiled. How much? He thought for a moment. 50? I took all my resolve to keep from laughing. He was so awful at this. Get in. He trembled in silence as I drove past the edges of the city to a less populated area. When I couldn't sense another mind other than his for a few miles in any direction, I turned off the road. I unbuckled my seatbelt and leaned over to him, asking him to remove his hood. No kissing, he said quickly. He had seen that rule in a movie. He thought it might help with his nervousness if I didn't try to kiss him. Understood. I planted my lips on his neck, his body tensed to the point that if I didn't have superior senses, his discomfort would have been apparent. I bit down. First there was shock and fear. He struggled against me. And then, like always, acceptance. He came to the realization that whatever I was doing to him felt very good. His hands grabbed my shirt, holding me against him as I drank deeply. I could feel his erection under my arm. He thoroughly enjoyed my bite, and I enjoyed the taste of him. He was young and sweet. Once I had my fill, I bit my tongue, spreading my blood over the wound to seal it. I sat up and pulled out my wallet. Taking out $500 bills, I held them out to him. Ryan watched me through heavy-lidded eyes, breathing deeply. We just had sex. I was rough and caused you a great deal of pain. I didn't want him selling himself again, so I tried to leave him with bad memories. Once compelled, his own mind would fill in the blanks. He'd feel the soreness I spoke of, even though I didn't lay a hand on him. I gave you 500 instead of 50, so you'd have time to recuperate from the things I did to you. He blinked. Dude, you just bit me. Are you a vampire? I looked into his mind. He loved vampires and the supernatural. He was more afraid of me when he thought I was just a John. Now he was in awe of me, which was ironic since I had to kill him. Every now and again, a human would be too strong-willed or too stupid to be compelled. These rules were very clear. If a mortal couldn't be compelled, they had to be disposed of. There were two problems, though. The first of which being I had never killed anyone, and the second was the sweet kid staring at me with adoration in his eyes. I put the car into reverse and backed onto the road. "Come home with me. We'll get you something to eat, and I'll tell you all about it." He was nervous, but excited. Our eyes met, and for the first time, he smiled. I had never stood in the sun before, but I knew what it felt like from the minds of others. That's how I felt in that moment, standing in front of something so bright I needed to cover my eyes to endure it. Ryan had a light about him that was uniquely his. How I dreaded to be the one to snuff it out. I had decided to take him home with me in order to come up with a plan, but deep down I knew there wasn't one. Sooner or later the boy would have to die, if not by my hand, then another vampire's, and me along with him for neglecting the law. After stopping by a fast food place, he devoured his first meal in days. Soon we reached my loft. Ryan took his own personal tour of my place. First, he went into my kitchen, playing with my stainless steel fixtures, twirling on the bar stools lining the kitchen counter. He then tested out my living room, running his hands over my leather furniture, opening the TV cabinet and marveling at its size. I almost wanted to keep him as a pet. As I put the leftover fast food away, he finally realized we hadn't introduced ourselves, even though I already knew a great deal about him. Extending his hand toward me, he said, "I'm Ryan, by the way." I looked down at his hand. "Isn't it a bit late for that?" I asked, tapping my neck. "I'm Alex." He dropped his hand to his side, blushing at the reminder of my fangs on his neck. "So, Alex, how old are you?" 24. He shook his head. "No, I don't mean what age were you when you returned. I mean, how many years have you walked the earth?" 24, though that first year I mostly crawled. Ryan was very unimpressed with my age. For some reason, I felt the need to elaborate. "I was born a vampire. My parents are hundreds of years old. I'm the last child of 27. "You have 26 older brothers and sisters?" I nodded. "That must suck." "Sometimes." I walked out of the kitchen and gestured for him to follow. "I know you're tired. This will be your room. I'll bring you some of my pajamas. They'll be big, but they're comfortable." He frowned. "My room? I figured we'd be sleeping together." "Sorry, I can't sleep with you. I'm working up the nerve to kill you, and that would just make things more difficult." "That won't be necessary." I left him standing in front of the guest room. As I lay in bed, waiting for the sun to rise, I listened to Ryan's thoughts. He intended to sneak into my room while I slept and crawl into bed with me. What he didn't know was I slept behind a steel door that was bolted shut. I wished him the best of luck getting in. The sun rose, and as my consciousness waned, the solution to my problem came to me. I would enthrall him. I would feed him my blood regularly until he became addicted to it. He would do anything I asked then. No one would know he couldn't be compelled if he was a thrall. No one would try. A thrall is immune to compulsion by any vampire other than their master. Never had I been a fan of enslaving mortals, but I figured it was better than death. The next night I awoke to the sound of Ryan's fork scraping his plate. He was in the kitchen, having dinner. From the smell alone, I knew that he had left the house while I was asleep. I didn't seem to make a particularly good jailkeeper. He lit up as I approached. "Morning," he said with a wide grin. His smile was radiant. I smiled back. "Morning," I replied, even though it was after 5 p.m. "Did you sleep well?" "Like the dead." He found that very funny. I poured a cup of coffee, nestling the warm mug in my hands. I studied him as I sipped. I thought about the ways to get him to ingest my blood. Getting him to drink from me willingly was the easiest way. To do that, I would probably have to sleep with him and establish a close, intimate relationship. It was no hardship for me. I had first wanted his blood because I found him desirable. I pressed my body against his and whispered in his ear, I need to eat. He visibly perked up at the suggestion. He remembered my bite, how pleasurable it felt. In a hoarse voice, he said, "Okay." Standing behind the bar stool on which he was seated, I wrapped my arms around his body. I pulled him tightly against me and let my fangs sink into his neck. His heart pounded faster as I drank. Soft moans escaped his lips as he reached back to touch me. I let my hands explore his skin, sliding under his shirt and up toward a nipple. I pinched it between my fingers and squeezed. His back arched under my touch. I stopped drinking and lapped at his bite mark until it closed. "Wow, that's good stuff," he remarked. "I'm not nearly done with you." My hands continued to caress him. His growing erection made his jeans uncomfortable. I reached down and unsnapped them for him. Pulling out his manhood, I wrapped my fingers around it, stroking him slowly. He squirmed on the bar stool. "Do you want me?" I whispered in his ear. "Oh, God, yes." I pulled his shirt over his head and he turned to kiss me. So much for his no-kiss policy. He pounced on me, tearing open my shirt. The buttons hit the floor with a clank. His nimble fingers explored my torso. Our clothes continued to fall to the floor as I guided him to my bedroom. I picked him up and tossed him on my bed. His naked body bounced a few times on my mattress as his eyes grew wide. He marveled at my strength and speed, things I simply took for granted. I kissed his neck and then worked my way down slowly, being sure to lick and suck every inch of him. His skin tasted as sweet as his blood. I used my abilities to go into his mind to see exactly how he liked to be touched. I elicited one breathy gasp after another until he was seeing stars. With my mouth on his manhood, I let 2 lubed fingers slip inside him, slowly stretching him open. By this point, he was mentally begging for me to fuck him. How could I deny such pleading, even though he didn't realize I could hear it? I pushed his legs open, spreading him wide. He cried out in pleasure as I slid my hardness all the way inside him. I leaned down, capturing his lips as I slowly rode his body, thrusting deep and hard, increasing my tempo. His hands moved to his shaft, and he began stroking himself as I fucked him. As I felt him getting close, I bit my wrist and put it to his lips. "Drink." He drank deeply, without question or concern. He was so far gone I could have asked anything of him and he would have abided. He was still licking the last drops from my now healed wrist as his orgasm hit him, amplified by my blood. He came so hard he was sure he'd die. I soon followed, erupting in great jets, streams of seed filling him. I collapsed on the bed next to him. After that, we became lovers. I had meant to keep him prisoner, to hold him in my apartment until I was sure he was addicted to my blood, but I had trouble refusing him anything. His happiness was of utmost importance to me. I made it my mission to spoil him, because in his hard life, no one else had. Several weeks had passed, and he was close to the point of no return. Sometimes he would feel sick, but my blood would always make him feel better. He frequently asked to drink from me. Once he discovered how difficult it was to hurt me, he would playfully bite my neck in an attempt to draw blood. I thought it was cute. He was beginning to put my will before his own, letting me decide what he would be doing, asking me how I felt about something before stating his opinion, which always happened to coincide with mine. Then it all came to an end. One day we were laying on the couch watching TV. I brushed a lock of curly hair from his forehead and thought, sometimes I wonder if killing you wouldn't be more merciful than what I am doing. He turned to me with such a look of fear in his eyes, I immediately knew 2 things. The first was that he had heard my thoughts. And not just heard them, he had seen them, the way a vampire does, with all the emotion and nuances attached. He had felt my guilt and sense of loss. I also realized what had felt wrong when I first met him. Somewhere in its bloodline was a supernatural being. Far back in his family tree there was a warlock, wizard, witch, or fae. His ancestry made him immune to compulsion, which also meant he would never be fully enthralled. He'd end up aware of the mental chains that bound him, but helpless to do anything about it. He ran for the front door. With my speed, I easily beat him to it, barring him from escape. His eyes began to swell with tears. He held his stomach as if he was going to be sick. "Oh, God, what are you doing to me?" I took a step towards him. My first instinct was to comfort him. He backed away from me in pure terror. I looked into his thoughts, expecting him to be upset about being enslaved. Instead, I just felt pain. He was hurting because I had betrayed him. There was a pain in my chest. I looked down, confused. My heart didn't beat. As a vampire, my sense of pain was almost non-existent. I didn't understand what was happening. Then I realized it wasn't me. It was him. His heart was breaking, literally breaking in his chest, and I was feeling it. I stepped away from the door. "Leave. Now. You haven't had enough of my blood to be enthralled yet. If you leave now, it'll hurt, but you'll recover." I took out my wallet and pulled out all the cash I had on me. "Here, take money." He slapped away my hand and stumbled out the door, barely able to hold himself up. I just stood there, clutching a fistful of bills with no idea what to do. By vampire law, I had committed several offenses, all of which were punishable by being staked in an open field at high noon. But honestly, I couldn't have cared less about punishment. I couldn't imagine a fate worse than the look on Ryan's face. For 3 days, I lay in bed without moving. Part of me had hoped he would come back, but who would willingly walk back into this? Without his blood to sustain me, I began to grow weak. I knew I would have to hunt soon, but the thought of feeding on someone else didn't appeal to me. I was punishing myself, making myself suffer for the pain I caused him. 2 more days had passed when I sensed him. I jumped from my bed and had the front door open before the first knock landed. His lips were pressed tightly together in a straight line. "Whatever you were doing to me, you felt like you had to. Why?" I stepped out of the doorway, letting him in. As he walked past me, his aroma almost made me swoon. I was so hungry and he smelled so good. "You can't be compelled, and you know about vampires. It's illegal to leave you alive. Next time I'm around my kind, someone will pick it up from my thoughts. Then we'll both be killed." He took a step back, his expression softening. "Are you sure? Sure we'll both die? I'd like to think they wouldn't be able to find you, but my people are very good hunters, and they'd know everything about you that I do." Ryan considered my words for a moment. "Then you have to kill me." My mouth fell open. "What?" "If they are going to kill us both, what's the point? I don't want to die, but if killing me saves you, then it's worth it." Unable to understand what he was doing, I looked into his mind. I saw the days we were apart, the horrible weight he felt. He didn't want to live without me. "I could still make you my thrall if you drink from me a few more times." "Then I won't be me anymore. I saw that in your head. It would be my body, but it wouldn't be me. That's death too. No, drain me and be done with it." I shook my head. I couldn't do it. Maybe I could take him and disappear. No, there was nowhere I could hide, not forever, not even one mortal's lifetime. And Ryan would be at the forefront of my thoughts. If I met another vampire, they'd immediately know about him. It was hopeless, but I was resolved. If he was going to die, it wouldn't be by my hand. I won't do it. Never. Determined, he walked into the kitchen and grabbed a knife. Holding out his arm, he cut his wrists and ordered again, "Drain me." Before the first drop of blood hit the floor, I was on him. I couldn't stop myself. I was starving, and he was my ambrosia. I drank a lot, but forced myself to stop before it was too late. Then I bit my tongue and licked the wound, healing it. He was weak from blood loss, but he wouldn't die. I caught him as the lack of blood made him woozy. He wondered if this was it, if he was dying. "No, you're low on blood, but you'll live." He looked disappointed. I couldn't help but marvel at his bravery. I could see in his mind his noble death so that I could live. His thoughts were poetic, full of love and sacrifice. It was a pity that his efforts were wasted. I wasn't prepared to live in a world he wasn't a part of. I carried him to my room and lay him on the bed. I figured once he regained his strength, we'd put our heads together and try to figure something out. I saw an image in his mind that shocked me. A second later, I had the kitchen knife in my side. He wasn't trying to kill me. He knew how fast I healed. He was trying to make me lose blood. Blood I'd need to replace with his. It was a good plan. Had he not acted the moment he thought of it, I would have had time to stop him. He had hit a kidney, so I was losing copious amounts of blood. I had to feed or die. If I died, the chances of Ryan being discovered were nil. Other vampires would have the same uneasiness around him that I did. They would sense his magic on a subconscious level. They would follow their instincts and leave him alone. I rolled onto my back away from him. He began to panic when he realized I wasn't trying to save myself. My last view was his soft curls falling around his worried face. So beautiful. Then, warmth. Sweet red warmth flowing down my throat. It was delicious. I drank my fill. Only then did I regain consciousness enough to realize I was draining him. He'd opened a wrist on my fang, and my body had taken over from there. I had taken too much blood. Nothing could be done for him. He was going to die. Terrified, I pulled him up into my lap. I bit my wrist and held it to his mouth. He was barely able to move, but still, he struggled against me. He thought I was trying to enslave him. "You're going to die. If you drink my blood, you'll come back. A vampire, but you'll come back." He opened his mouth and drank. He fought to swallow, inches away from death. I listened to every beat of his slowing heart until it finally stopped. Time seemed to stop moving as I waited. I had never turned anyone before. I was far too young to have a protege. I didn't even know if I'd done it right. I wasn't sure if he'd drank enough of my blood. I would be punished, but I didn't care. If I had turned him at first, my family would have killed him to protect me. No fondness for a boy or distaste for killing was worth torture so horrendous it often led to madness. But now, all they'd have to do is look into my mind. They'd know I'd endure anything for him. My parents would support me against the other elders. They might not have understood altruism, but they understood love. After all, theirs had endured for centuries. Cradling his dead body, I counted the minutes. I reached out to every deity I could think of. Please, please let him wake up. His eyes opened. I called out his name, Ryan. He smiled as brightly as always, but with fangs. How to Date Women, Chapter 9. Why self-confidence is the secret to dating success. Can we be brutally honest for a moment? You can take it, right? If you are not confident, you will not achieve success in your dating and relationship life. It truly is that simple, and there are no two ways about it. Let us start at the most basic reason why. It creates positive self-perception. For this guide, we have defined confidence and also self-confidence as a firm belief in your value, in yourself, and your abilities. The essence of this definition is that self-confidence is about self-perception, which is of fundamental importance because what you think about yourself greatly influences how you approach everything, including dating and relationships. The unconfident man's approach to dating and relationships. For a moment, let us assume that you like this one woman. Let's call her Jane. You like Jane a lot, and you believe she is the one, the perfect woman for you. However, you are shy, insecure, timid, and your self-belief or self-confidence is super low. Because your self-belief is extremely low, your self-perception is negative, which is why even though you want nothing more than to be with Jane for the rest of your life, you never gather the courage to walk up to her. Every time you think of walking up to her to say hello and introduce yourself, you always talk yourself out of it. This is because you do not believe in yourself or your deservedness for Jane. After all, she is the most beautiful and amazing woman you know, and therefore out of your league. Because of your insecurities, you nurture unprofessed love for Jane for years and watch as she dates this guy or that man. And guess what? She finally walks down the aisle with a man that is not you. It shatters your heart because Jane was the one. You swear off women because it leads to heartache and pain. While this narrative is fictional, when you lack self-confidence, such scenarios are likely to become a common occurrence in your dating and relationship life. This is because when you lack self-confidence, you have a poor self-perception, something that is likely to affect how you go about doing everything in your life, including approaching the woman of your dreams. For example, when your confidence is low, your inner dialogue is likely to be negative too, because you have no self-belief. When negativity and self-criticism become your default mode of thinking, it limits your potential and keeps you from being your authentic self. Moreover, a negative inner monologue turns you into a skeptic and pessimistic person. Because of this, every time you think of walking up to a woman you would like to introduce yourself to and know with dating in mind, you are likely to think up all the reasons why she is too good for you or why you do not deserve her, as opposed to the previous, when you believe in yourself and your self-confidence is high, your inner monologues are likely to be largely positive. Because you have a high, not grandiose, sense of self, you're likely to believe that you deserve good things in life, which is why when you see a beautiful woman you would like to know, you are likely to look for all the reasons why you deserve her and why she deserves to have you as her man. Again, this change in perspective seems minuscule and non-influential, but the number of men who have talked themselves out of approaching a woman with whom they can start an amazing relationship is huge. If you are shy, you're likely to relate to this. Now, let us talk about another adjacent reason why confidence is essential to your dating and relationship life. It opens you up to meeting new people. Confidence is the secret to your dating success because being confident gives you the courage to meet new people. Think of it this way. Assume you are walking down the street or are at a bar or the park, etc., and you see a woman that catches your fancy. Like most men, you are likely to think to yourself, she is gorgeous. Wow, she probably has a boyfriend. There's nothing wrong with thinking such a thought. It is, in fact, normal to rationalize an inability to approach new people by saying things such as, I don't have time to talk to her right now, or I don't know what to say, she will reject me, etc. However, to enhance your chances of finding an ideal mate, irrespective of your dating or relationship intentions, such an attitude is not beneficial. It shall keep you from meeting new women who have the potential to turn into amazing dates and mates. Most men usually fail to have amazing dating and relationship lives simply because they have closed themselves off to meeting new people. This is because most men who lack confidence and self-belief often talk themselves out of approaching or talking to women they find attractive and people they find interesting. Confidence is the secret to dating and relationship success because it changes this dynamic. When you are self-confident and assured, it opens you up to meeting new people because when you see a woman you consider beautiful and would like to talk to and know, instead of coming up with excuses for why you should not do it, you push past these reasons and embrace the discomfort. This allows you to challenge yourself into starting a conversation, and out of that, your chances of starting amazing dates and relationships improve significantly. Additionally, when you are self-assured, you are more likely to put yourself out there because you understand that rejection is never about you as a person. It is usually about your approach or misaligned interests. Confidence is about taking chances. When you have it in spades, taking chances by talking to women and new people becomes easier. Confidence is the secret to dating and relationship success because when you are confident, it shows in your demeanor and body language. When your body language is positive, it attracts others and enhances your chances of meeting new people because open and confident body language cues such as a friendly smile and curious eye contact are very attractive and endearing. Helps you overcome anxiety and fear. A primary reason why self-confidence is the secret to dating success is that it helps you overcome fear and anxiety. This is because when you feel self-assured, you are likely to practice positive self-talk. This is very important because when your negative inner critic fires up and says such things as, she's out of your league, she will reject you, or you will fail, you can use the positive self-talk to quell and counter these thoughts with positive ones, such as, I deserve to be with a woman as beautiful as she is. I am interesting as a person, and I have a lot to offer the right woman. Or if I say hello, I might make a new friend or romantic connection. When you can talk yourself into such a positive manner, it becomes easier to detach from your thoughts, reconnect with the present moment, and then act by respectfully approaching the woman you want. Helps you cultivate emotional resiliency. When you are confident and self-assured, in addition to enhancing your ability to challenge negative self-talk and reframe it positively, you are also equipped with essential emotional coping skills and strategies that make it easier to handle challenges and overcome setbacks. For instance, being self-assured does not mean that women will stop rejecting you altogether or reject you less. They will. The only difference is that because you are self-assured and confident in your value as a man, you will not take this to heart so much that it ruins your self-esteem. Instead, you shall pass it off as misaligned intention, which will help keep the fear of rejection or failure from crippling your ability to act toward the things you want. Moreover, confidence opens you up to new experiences, which is essential to meeting new people, especially women, because when you are willing to try new things, you also open yourself up to growth opportunities in all areas of your life, including your dating and relationship life. As you have seen from these 4 points, confidence is indeed the secret to dating, and therefore, to achieve success in your dating and relationship life, you need to cultivate it as a matter of importance. Let's now discuss various practical strategies and habits you can use to cultivate deeper self-assuredness. Concrete strategies and habits to help you grow and foster inner self-confidence. In this subsection, we are going to outline various practical strategies and habits you can adopt to become more self-confident and self-assured. Cultivate internal and external confidence. Self-confidence falls into 2 primary categories, internal and external self-confidence. Both are very important, and here is how to cultivate both. How to cultivate external confidence. From a very broad perspective, this kind of confidence is important because it comes from a feeling capable of doing a task or activity competently or successfully. Consider the following scenario. When you do not know what to say to women, you are likely to feel very nervous and lack confidence. And because you do not feel competent at having conversations, you're likely to feel inadequate and insecure. On the other hand, when you know what to do or say or how to complete a certain task, such as starting an interesting online conversation, you are likely to feel self-assured and capable. Also called situational confidence, external self-confidence is domain-specific, in the sense that you feel capable of doing some things well and incapable of doing others. This is why you may be the CEO of your company, but still unable to talk to women, because you have competence in one area and feel that you lack confidence in another. Situational confidence is very easy to cultivate. Do you know why? because this kind of confidence comes from practice. And therefore, the more you practice something, the better you become at it, and the more competent you feel. To cultivate situational confidence with women, you only need to do one thing. Start approaching and talking to women. No matter how shy or bad at it you are, just start. Yes, you will suck at it at first, and women will reject you many times over. But with every trial and with every rejection, you will callous your mind to rejection and build emotional resiliency. More importantly, the more you put yourself out there and the more chances you take, the more confident you will feel and the better you will become at approaching women and starting conversations with new people, which will significantly improve your ability to meet, attract, and date the woman of your dreams. Here are additional practical strategies and habits you can use to cultivate external confidence. 1. Treat every situation as a learning experience. Whenever you meet a beautiful woman you would like to talk to and perhaps date, no matter how shy or bad at talking to women you are, treat this as a learning opportunity and take a chance. This is because situational confidence is a result of experience. 2. Practice self-awareness so that you can challenge your inner talk. Most men shy away from talking to the women of their dreams because their negative inner self-talk stops them from taking chances. You can overcome this by challenging these thoughts. When you meet a woman you would like to date, connect with the present moment so that you can become aware of the conversations happening in your mind. And should you notice negative self-talk, you can question and challenge its authenticity. 3. Develop specific interpersonal skills. External confidence comes from feeling competent at doing certain contextual things. For instance, if you have your driver's license and drive frequently, you are confident in your driving skills. By deciding to begin developing certain interpersonal abilities, you may apply the same concept to dating and contacting women. Consider the interpersonal areas in which you are least confident, and then aim to improve these skills via practice. For instance, if you think you are bad at approaching women and starting conversations, concentrate on improving this skill. If you feel you are incapable of turning a one-off conversation into a date, concentrate on building this skill. The more competent you become at specific interpersonal abilities, the more confident you shall feel in your ability to attract the woman of your dreams. 4. Crave and embrace discomfort. To develop situational confidence, you need to embrace discomfort, because to develop this kind of confidence, you have to put yourself out there and seek new experiences. Remember that emotional resiliency, or what we call callousing your mind, does not come easy or overnight. It comes from constantly embracing discomfort and working with it, which can only be possible if you're willing to do things that make you feel uncomfortable. Whenever you notice an attractive woman, do not overthink it. Just do it. The more you think about it, the higher the chances are of you talking yourself out of acting. To become more comfortable with being uncomfortable, start small. For instance, when you see a woman you like, compel yourself to say a simple hello. Then, the next time you see another woman you find attractive, say hello and follow it up with some small talk. If you keep doing this, you will train your mind to embrace discomfort, and you will develop the confidence you need to become better at approaching a woman for dating purposes. The most important thing to remember about external or situational confidence is that it develops out of feeling competent. You can therefore develop it in different areas of your dating life by becoming more aware of the areas where you feel incompetent, and then deliberately seeking out situations that help you cultivate competence in these areas. How to cultivate internal confidence. Internal confidence is a choice. This kind of confidence is very important because you can have it irrespective of your competence level. Think of it this way. Even though you may not be competent at talking with women, simply believing you are good at it can significantly increase your chances of talking to women you would like to date. Even though both types of confidence are important, internal self-confidence, or what we call core self-confidence, is more important because it relates to what you think about yourself. If you believe you are confident around women, it won't matter if you are or aren't, since your inner self-belief and conviction will motivate you to approach and talk to new ladies. A study published by the University of California, Berkeley noted that, quote, those who truly believe in their abilities to succeed are the ones who end up being the most successful at doing just that. The implication of this is that if you strongly believe you are capable of attracting the woman of your dreams, you shall succeed at it. It may take a while, but because you believe in yourself, you will not give up until you do. Like Steve Rogers, your mindset shall be, I can do this all day. The best way to increase your confidence is to work on your self-belief. You can use several strategies to do this. 1. Challenge your beliefs. Spend a small portion of your day, 15 to 30 minutes should be enough, engaged in self-reflection. More specifically, since you intend to improve your dating and relationship skills and life, spend some of this me time thinking about the various things you believe about your ability to attract, talk to, and date beautiful and interesting women. Think deeply about whether your beliefs are complementary or incompatible with the kind of dating and relationship life you want. If they are not, interrogate them and look for contradictory evidence. The more you challenge your negative beliefs, the easier it is to develop inner conviction in your ability to attract the kind of woman you deserve and want in your life. 2. Visualize success with women. Visualization is a new age science strategy that calls on you to use your mind to imagine an ideal scenario. Visualization is powerful because it gives your subconscious mind contradicting evidence. When you visualize yourself as a confident man who is capable of approaching women and starting conversations, the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between make-believe and reality, and it will take this to mean you are great at approaching and talking to women. 3. Use affirmations. To build core self-confidence, you need to build inner conviction. You need to believe you are capable, worthy, and deserving of dating amazing women. Affirmations can help you do that. An affirmation is a sentence that you consciously repeat to embed it, along with the associated belief, into your subconscious mind. Affirmations are effective because they assist you in adopting a fresh perspective on yourself. For instance, when you loudly repeat an affirmation such as, I am good at approaching and talking to women, you eventually start believing this affirmation because the human mind eventually believes what you tell it, affirm, often. When you repeat this affirmation, your brain shall seek evidence to reinforce it. 4. Cultivate fear awareness. If you consider yourself bad at talking to women, it is probably because you have related fears and insecurities. When it comes to approaching women, nothing is as crippling as the fear of rejection or failure, which is why to create internal confidence, you need to cultivate fear awareness and then work toward uprooting your fears and insecurities. Rejection or failure is the most common fear in most men. This fear preys on your doubts, blows things out of proportion, and overwhelms you to the point of paralysis. Always remember that to become a confident man, you have to know what you want, and then not be afraid to go out and get it, despite the risk of failure. You can overcome your fears by rehearsing worst-case scenarios of approaching women. Doing this will callous your mind and make you emotionally resilient to things such as rejection, embarrassment, etc., which will improve your self-belief and make you more willing and capable of approaching women and putting yourself out there. The fundamental thing to remember about developing core confidence is that it comes from inner conviction, a deep belief in yourself and your abilities. Any strategy or habit that helps you cultivate positive self-belief will help you develop internal self-belief. Creating a morning and evening routine. Confidence is more than just feeling good about yourself. It's also feeling capable and in control of your life. While feeling in control of your life is a multi-pronged endeavor, creating a morning and evening routine is one of the most effective ways to boost this feeling. A morning and evening routine serves various purposes. First, it ensures that you get adequate sleep, because one of the things it calls for is sleeping and waking up at the same time. You may be wondering, what does getting adequate sleep have to do with confidence with women? Well, a study conducted on doctors and published in BMJ journals noted that getting adequate sleep at night leads to increased feelings of well-being, better mood, and higher energy levels, and enhanced confidence. Secondly, when you create an effective morning and evening routine, it helps you to internalize self-confidence as a practice. This is because when you wake up on time every day, it helps you to feel in control of your schedule and life, which makes you feel more competent, and to develop self-discipline, the most important of all masculine character traits. Your morning and evening routines can include some activities such as exercising, personal grooming, meditation, and goal setting for the day in the morning, or reading, journaling, and introspecting in the evening. As you can see, these wellness-related habits can significantly help you feel more confident and in control of your life and yourself.